The NCAA has been literally helpless to stop anything going on in college basketball, and now they've just come out and admitted it. There's nothing they can do.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about the NCAA coming out and admitting there's nothing they can do about the current state of college basketball. And while I said on yesterday's show, Kentucky needs to take advantage while they still can, as should every major program with some money to spend right now, it doesn't make it any better of a situation. And in fact, it does suck. Also on today's episode, going to talk about how the Wildcats can start SEC play hot, a lot of winnable games at the top. And then to wrap up the show, Mark Pope says that Kentucky is trending towards the type of team they want to be, specifically the team that can find their quote-unquote highest ceiling. What does that look like? I'll tell you what it looks like here on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we're free and available on all platforms. Subscribe, please, wherever you are tuned in. It would mean a ton as we get into SEC play here this Saturday. To start, though, the NCAA is genuinely helpless. They have been for a while now, and they just came out and admitted that there's nothing they can do unless Congress steps in, unless we can get the government to step in and change what college basketball currently is. There's nothing the NCAA can do to stop some of these programs from bringing in kids that have played in the NBA, that are professionals overseas, that are coming back to college, that are getting 6, 7, 8 years of eligibility in college. It is ridiculous. It is a clown show what college basketball is currently. And the governing body of this sport cannot do anything about it. Jeff Goodman on Twitter said just yesterday, he said, I asked the NCAA whether players with NBA experience were able to play in college. This was the statement they provided to Field of 68. I'm going to read the statement here from the NCAA. Schools are recruiting and seeking eligibility for more individuals with more international, semi-pro, and professional experience than ever before. And while the NCAA members have updated many rules following the House injunction, more rules must likely be updated to reflect the choices member schools are making. At the same time, NCAA eligibility rules have been invalidated by judges across the country, wreaking havoc on the system and leading to fewer opportunities for the high school students, which is why the association is asking Congress to intervene in these challenges. So what they're saying there is, yeah, we acknowledge that all of the crap, all of the BS that's happening in college basketball right now, with James Nnaji coming back to play at Baylor, with Illinois adding players from overseas mid-season, by the way, with players like Trentyn Flowers, who have logged NBA minutes and scored actual NBA points for the Chicago Bulls, coming back to college to see if he can go play for somewhere like NC State, some high-profile Power 4 school. They're acknowledging all of this and saying, we probably need to update some rules, but at the same time, the rules that we have in place have been invalidated by judges, and so we're asking Congress to step in and please help us to try and save our sport because it has gone down the drain so quickly. And I want to be clear here. This is not a old man yells at clouds type take of NIL sucks, the transfer portal shouldn't exist. Like, we shouldn't ever have any of these things. I think it's fair for kids to be fairly compensated for their efforts as high-profile athletes at all of these different schools. I think kids should get paid for their play. I don't disagree with that. I think they should be able to get sponsorship deals. I think they should be able to be paid directly at times by the university to go do different things for the university outside of just play college basketball. They should be compensated for those things. I'm not sitting here telling you NIL shouldn't exist. The fact that all of these things were approved, the portal NIL, all the current state of the sport, the fact that everything was just approved and it just sort of happened and no one really set any sort of hard regulated like guidelines on this thing. The fact that we just kind of let the plane take off without attaching the right wing is beyond me. And here we sit on almost New Year's 2026, heading into this year saying, there's nothing that you and I can do other than sit back and complain. There's nothing that we can do other than be upset at the current state of our sport. It is a laughing stock that somebody in their mid to late 20s can come back and play college basketball for a 7th year, for an 8th year in somebody's case. I mean, John Calipari, who I know a lot of you may not like because he left Kentucky, he's spitting right now. He had like a 7-minute rant in a post-game press conference the other day. He hops on SportsCenter, has the exact same rant basically saying that this is a problem. This is a problem that we cannot regulate this sport where as the NCAA is even saying, we're taking opportunities away from freshmen. Even Calipari said, my thing is that I recruit freshmen. I'm going to continue to do that. But if I can't get freshmen that are able to compete mentally, physically, or even skill-wise, it's not a viable option anymore. I have to go get some of these guys. I have to play the game. I have to go out there and get somebody like Trentyn Flowers if he is just physically way more dominant than what half the sport has to offer, and I can train him up and put him in my system that I know works. Why wouldn't I go out there and get somebody like him? Why wouldn't I go get somebody like Illinois, the player that they just added? Why wouldn't I, if I'm down a center or a point guard in Kentucky's case, why wouldn't I go and get somebody like James Nnaji to help fill a void where nobody is going to stop it from being filled? No one's going to prevent this. It's a Wild West right now. And again, I think that the major programs should take advantage of these rules, lack of rules, I guess I should say, while they still can before this gets shut down or Congress shuts it down. But it is almost hilarious, but also at the same time just complete and utter bullcrap that this is reality. This is the state of the sport. The NCAA genuinely helpless, begging for someone to step in and take control of what was their sport. And there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. This is the reality. Which is why I said on yesterday's show again, as much as I hate it, this is not college. This is not college basketball. It's not college basketball. If these kids want to go play basketball, they should go do it elsewhere. A 26-year-old who has run out of eligibility should not be, or has declared for the NBA draft and played actual, honest-to-goodness NBA minutes. He shouldn't be able to come back to college to play. He should have to go somewhere else. He should have to go to the G League. He should have to go back to Australia for the NBL. He should have to go to Spain. He should have to go to Israel. He should have to go somewhere like that instead of coming and ruining our sport. I am tired of this. I am so unbelievably sick of seeing 26 and 27-year-old, 24, 25, 26, 27-year-olds coming back to play our sport. It is ruining the integrity of the game. And we just have to sit here and take it. So I say, as long as we have to sit here and take it, I think we should take advantage. It's like I said yesterday. If you can go get somebody like Ashton Hagans, go get somebody like Ashton Hagans. If you can go get somebody like Oscar Tshiebwe, bring him back, because there's nothing they can do to stop it. And in the process, at the same time, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here. I think if Kentucky loses to an opponent that's brought in somebody midseason, like if they lose to Baylor in the round of 64, I'm going to say it's invalidated. I'm going to fight for every single way that I can to say this is not a legitimate win. This is unfair. This is bull. And if Kentucky were to win with a player that they've added midseason, I would grit my teeth and tell you on the show it's awesome that they won, but in reality, we all know it'd be bull. It would be unfair. It would be ridiculous to even have that happen. This is awful. It sucks. And there's nothing we can do. On a more positive note, set all of that to the side. Kentucky has right now in front of them the perfect opportunity to sort of flip the season on its head. Because right now, even with two big wins against St. John's and in Indiana, the Wildcats still aren't really all that happy. because they're not shooting well. They've gotten blown out by opponents they shouldn't have gotten blown out by. They lost to North Carolina at home. That shouldn't have happened. And the team, like, they are trying to get off the mat. It still feels like they're trying to get off the mat, even though they've picked up a couple of nice wins. Only one of them being quad one, if I'm not mistaken. They've got the perfect opportunity to turn things around and start SEC play hot. Let's talk about the upcoming schedule. Let's talk about how they can attack this here. Before we do that, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, like college basketball season. The tailgates before the game, the packed arenas, being right there in the middle of it all, the energy, the vibes, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets to some of these games, and you know this as a Kentucky fan, at part can be frustrating at times with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout, but no more. It's why I use Game Time. It actually gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college basketball tickets and experiences in just a few taps. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. I have used the zone deals thing that Game Time has for an NBA game, actually for a Charlotte Hornets game, where in zone deals, you can pick the section and Game Time will pick the seats for you and you save money. It is legitimately incredible. If you're getting a ticket to literally any event in the future, sporting event, concert, comedy, etc., go to Game Time. Absolutely go to Game Time. They have prices up front, makes the whole process stress-free. You don't have to take any sort of guesswork here. Take it all out by using Game Time, buying your college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, continuing along here on today's show. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Kentucky with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonkentucky.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's continue along here. So we talked about how the NCAA is genuinely helpless to do anything. The sport is a mess. We've got coaches saying it's a mess, despite them saying, like, the reality is, like, we've got to kind of step in and play the game a little bit. I've been saying on the show, yeah, you've got to kind of step in and play the game. Of course, we all know with the way that Mark Pope and Mitch Barnhart want to do things, by the book, by the tee, as perfectly as they possibly can. If Kentucky were to even try and step in on one of these guys, which isn't going to happen, there's almost no chance they're going to be able to land anybody unless it's a former Cat, because they're just not going to be uber competitive in that space. We know the situation with Mark Pope. We know the situation with JMI. We know the situation with Mitch Barnhart about how everybody's just kind of pitching in on a really piss-poor effort to recruit. It's a really bad spot right now. Kentucky athletics are not in a good way. The only positive thing that we have going for us right now, outside of the fact that volleyball just made the national championship, hate the fact they got swept, by the way. The only thing we have going for us right now is that Will Stein might be able to turn this thing around for football, and that's a big might, because the schedule in 2026 is so incredibly difficult that while Kentucky may show signs of improvement, the record might not be much different at all from where they were this last season in Mark Stoops' final year. But I'm excited to see what happens with Stein. I am optimistic to see where he can take this program, especially offensively. The other thing that we can do to kind of turn this thing around emotionally before baseball season gets here for basketball is, look, you come out of the SEC slate, or excuse me, the non-conference slate, I should say, 9-4, with the third worst game of the year that you played against Bellarmine. You still win that game 99-85, but it was a really, 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 really bad game from Kentucky, especially on the defensive end, against a team that was acting like they were going to die if they didn't win that game in the Knights. You now come into SEC play, projected to go 10-8. Hey, look, you're finishing over 500 in conference play. Should be pretty cool, right? Well, if you go listen to the end of yesterday's episode, I make it pretty clear, and I think you guys would agree, 10-8 in back-to-back seasons is unacceptable, especially if you're not doing anything in the NCAA tournament. Like, if Kentucky gets bounced in the round of 32 this year, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Mark Pope to perform in year 3. because this is a horrible mismanagement of creating a roster, I should say, with the resources that have been allocated to Kentucky. They overpaid, it seems like, for a team. And they've got a chance to turn it around and prove us wrong, but it's pretty clear through this, I would say this decent sample size, that they are not the team that we thought they would be. I think that that's very fair to say. But they've got a chance here regardless to turn it around. Despite what forget what the computer models say, forget what Torvik says, KenPom says, forget what the net ratings say. Just walk with me here for a second. You open on the road against Alabama. But by the way, I thought about this earlier. Let's go back to some of these season openers that Kentucky's had in SEC play. This year they travel to play Alabama, a team that they have really struggled against. Last year they opened at home against Florida, who won the national championship. The year before that, they opened against Missouri, who was terrible. The year before that, though, they opened on the road against Missouri in a game they got blown out in. And the year before that, they opened against Missouri, who at that point, was also trash. Why are we playing Missouri so much, I guess is my question. Where we went from kind of easing in with a game against Missouri to now, actually, it's funny because Missouri's the second game in your SEC slate. But we've now kind of transitioned to, okay, we're just going to play extremely hardball against some of the teams that we struggle the most against in SEC play, Bama, Florida, etc. Which, if I'm not mistaken, it has kind of been on and off Florida for a minute, at least a couple of times here in this slate. But anyway, you open on the road against Alabama in a game you're probably going to lose. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Mark Pope, clearly, like the way that he plays, the way that he likes his teams to play, do not match up well with what Alabama does. It just hasn't seemed to work. And while, yes, this team is a lot better on the defensive end, after seeing what Kentucky did against Louisville in terms of not closing out, in terms of not limiting the three ball, not limiting what Louisville was trying to do to get to the charity stripe, with the way that Alabama plays, so aggressive, getting downhill, kicking out, shooting threes, the way that they protect the rim as well. I mean, this is shaping up to be what could end up being as bad of a blowout as what you saw against Gonzaga if you decide to lie down midway through the first half, right? Or Kentucky could find a way to win. I don't know. But it all signs point to it being a difficult game to win, if not a game Kentucky's not going to win. Toss that out for a second. Well, hold on to it for a second. Actually, bring it back in. Tell it to come back in. Tell them it's not done yet. You lose to Bama, whatever. After that, Missouri, Mississippi State, LSU, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss. Let me repeat that. Missouri, who is currently 10-3 and has lost all three of their games to teams with a pulse. Mississippi State, who is 8-5, at one point 4-5 to start the year. LSU, who is 12-1, but their only game that they played so far against a team worth a rip, they lost 82-58 against Texas Tech. Tennessee, who has kind of split against teams that they are against teams that are decent, with a really bad loss to Syracuse, a loss to Illinois, loss to Kansas, wins over Houston and Louisville, but still a team that I think Kentucky can really limit, especially if they're able to be aggressive on the glass. A team that Kentucky has beaten quite a bit in Knoxville over the last few years. And then you have Texas, who is 9-4. Their only win against a quality opponent being NC State. They lost by 15 to Duke. They lost to Arizona State. That's a bad loss. They lost to Virginia in a blowout. They lost to UConn. I mean, the team and that's in Rupp. And then Ole Miss, who is 8-5. A lot of teams there. Even just looking at records, and watching how these teams actually play. Forget the computer models for a second. Forget what the analytics tell you. I'm not even going to tell you what Kentucky's projected record in those games are. I'll just go ahead and tell you it's not 6-0, but what I see is 6-0. You play LSU on the road, that's a game you can win. Absolutely a game you can win. You play Tennessee on the road, another game that you can absolutely win. You've shown it recently that you can, and I think that matchup-wise, you can really go at this Tennessee team because you've already played a couple of teams on your schedule, St. John's most notably, who are really, really, really good at crashing the glass that you were able to hold to 66 points. And this Tennessee team is not a phenomenal shooting team. I think you can match up well with them. And then Texas and Ole Miss. I mean, again, respect to this conference still technically being the best conference in America right now. For now, we'll see what happens by the end of the year. But, I mean, you get Missouri and like to have those two games against LSU and Tennessee on the road kind of be the stressors there. And it's an opportunity to go add 2 more quad 1 games to your slate. 6-1. You can be 6-1 heading into a huge road game against Vanderbilt. Right? At that point, after going 9-4, you'd be 9-5, and then you'd be 10-5, 11-5, 12-5, 13-5, 14-5, 15-5, and you've got a lot more momentum on your hands heading into back-to-back road games against Vandy and Arkansas. We'll see what Arkansas looks like at that point. We'll see if Vanderbilt still has one of the best offenses in America. My guess is that it will slow down at some point for Mark Byington and company, although they are still very, very good. But my guess is that Kentucky will find a way to build some momentum in the first half of the slate. If not, just flat out go 6-1 to start off and kind of get back to where they were mentally. And Mark Pope talked about how this team's going to become the Kentucky team that has its highest ceiling. It's going to happen. They're evolving into that. What does that look like? It has a lot to do with literally just one player. Just one player. and I hate the fact that it does, but darn it if it doesn't. We'll talk about who that guy is. We'll talk about how Kentucky can become the best version of themselves in just a little bit. Before we do it, though, need to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Fridays are already feeling different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night, before games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. You can open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, and it will always bring you something new, boasts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during the NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, wrapping up today's episode. I really appreciate you guys checking it out. It's funny how, despite the fact that we've had like one game in 2 weeks pretty much. I mean, we've had one game since the 20th, and we're not going to get one until Saturday. It's really funny that basically every time we've done a show, we've had a lot to talk about. And granted, we've kind of hit the Christmas lull here towards the end of the month, so not as many episodes, obviously, with the holiday break. Of course, that's changing here as the week continues on. Trust me, it will. It's kind of funny how we've had a lot to talk about, both speculative and reality, with how the NCAA is powerless to what Kentucky can be with Jayden Quaintance. We've had Mario Maitland on the show, him in a massive hat that I really wish I had. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Kentucky's quote-unquote highest ceiling, because Mark Pope made a comment on his radio show yesterday that he says that Kentucky is evolving into the team that's going to get themselves to the highest ceiling. It was kind of poor wording, but basically he says they're rounding into their the best version of themselves. They're evolving into the best version of themselves. And to be honest with you, if they stay healthy, I believe him. I really do believe him. And not only do I believe him, I think that you're looking at a lot of these toss-up games that computer models right now don't think Kentucky's going to win. I think Kentucky's going to go through the SEC slate 12-6, 13-5. They're going to, if they stay healthy, yeah, they'll rip through some of these non-con games. Of course, there'll be some up and downs, I think, at different points. Maybe Kentucky finds themselves on the winning side of things more often than not. But I think that there is a chance that not only is Pope right, but that if he can keep one player healthy, the chemistry for this team, you really start to see what Pope's vision was for this squad before the season started. And again, that is to also acknowledge at the same time, this is not a perfectly constructed roster. We know that. Kind of make and do. But what's it look like? What does the highest ceiling look like? It's pretty obvious. A lot of this has to do with Jaland Lowe. Everything has to do with Jalen at this point. And I feel bad because I think he knows that there's a lot of pressure on him to perform. It's not hard to watch, or it's not hard to see. If you go out and watch Kentucky, they're a completely different team without him on the floor. Almost everything has to do with Jalen at this point. It actually turns the offense into an offense. So what does the highest ceiling look like with Jalen on the floor? Improved shooting. There's an improved inside-out type of game. There's an improved outside shot, I think, for this team because the spacing gets better. I think it's improved consistency. It's better half-to-half performances against quality opponents instead of laying an egg in the first half and having to fight back in the second. It's Jayden Quaintance also, I think, pairing up with Jalen to form a very serious 1-2 punch. Malachi Marino has also been an incredible role man this season, I think, at times. So I think with Jalen, everything opens up. More at the rim, more from beyond the arc. If you get somebody like Cam Williams going a little bit more, get Colin Chandler better in spot-up situations. He has been really cold as of late. So is Trent Noah, by the way, to an extent, whenever he's gotten on the floor. But it all kind of starts and ends with Jalen. If he can be the healthy point guard, not even healthy, you know what I mean, like 80%, which is kind of what he's probably going to operate at for the rest of the year. If he can do that and stay on the floor, he's going to be impactful. And to be honest with you, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more at length on the next episode of the show, but Jalen, he has statistically been improving over these past couple of games now that he's getting more and more comfortable, now that he's actually out there consistently with this team. And it's you can see it. You can see what Kentucky wants to be. You can see what they want to be as a team. They can be better with him. They can really elevate their ceiling. Their ceiling, if you want to put a number on it or you want to put a postseason number on it, this is a Final Four caliber squad if they can get that production out of Jalen. So yeah, I think Kentucky is evolving possibly into the team that they can be. But if their point guard gets hurt at any point during this, I mean, the Pokemon evolution stops right there. And then you're caught in some weird amalgamation between level 2 and level 3, and everything looks disgusting. Improved inside-out game, improved shooting, better half-to-half performances, and then also you can look at Jayden Quaintance, obviously, as an X factor here. I think he changes everything Kentucky wants to do defensively, and then also at the same time, I think he kind of helps Kentucky play more comfortably at the spots they want to. I think it allows Aberdeen to be a little bit more of a 2. It allows Chandler to definitely be a 2. It allows Owe to play more comfortably at the 3, Diabate at the 4, Marino at the 5. I mean, their lineup kind of slides into place just a little bit better. It's not like, oh my gosh, everything changes in terms of lineup, but it does change on the floor how Kentucky approaches things defensively. And then also I think the lineup kind of looks a little bit better as well. JQ also kind of helps this offense's ability to do things in the post. I think his post-up ability could be good. We'll see. Instead of taking fadeaway jumpers, I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive attacking the rim. Not to say that he hasn't been. He's missed a couple dunks against Bellarmine that he should have flushed. It's one of those where you got to go up with 2 hands, I feel like, instead of just one, and he lost it, which, kind of hard to believe. But, I mean, hey, the kid's got growing pains. He's just a kid. He's just 18, guys. Can't be too overly hard on him. He's gonna grow. He's gonna develop. He's gonna get better. So yeah, I think that's Kentucky's ceiling. They can be a Final Four type team. They can keep everybody healthy and get Jaland Lowe to be the engine. Be the engine. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Locked On Kentucky. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Kentucky so you get all the latest episodes. If you need to maybe, possibly, get a gift for somebody here still, or someone keeps asking you, hey, what you want? Would you like something? You can make it really easy. You can ask for the Everydayer Club. You can get it for yourself. Honestly, ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more subscriptions can be gifted or just bought individually through lockedonkentucky.supercast.com. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure to make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. Really appreciate you guys tuning in today. You can follow me on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow the show over on Twitter, or you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at Lance Dawe_. And then you can also follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And God bless.